It is a lot harder than it seems to tell a story solely with their surroundings, without any form of written or spoken text. For this experiment, we used a relatively simple story, which made it a lot more realistic goal. Our hypothesis is, though, that as soon as you would like to tell a more complicated story, a longer one, or go into more details, it's going to be harder and harder to do that with only environmental storytelling. We then see this form of storytelling work more in a combination with written or spoken text as soon as the story gets more complicated, longer, more detailed, or when it heavily relies on characters. By the objects in someone's bedroom, you can learn a great deal about the character. For example, that they're sloppy or that they like video games. But if a character is very arrogant, for example, we think a dialogue with them could tell you that more efficiently, and also lets the audience build a stronger opinion of a character, since you actually met them and talked with them. Since you don't know for sure if the audience will see everything you put into the room or will interpret everything the way you meant to, you don't know if they will get the same story in their head as you wanted to tell. You need to be able to let go of the control over your story and let the audience make their own with the cues you give them. If we go back to the research question, the first research question was, how can I direct someone's attention or focus? There are multiple ways to do this. The first is that you need to find a way to let the object stand out from the rest, or it's bigger, or it's lit in an outstanding way, or the color scheme draws attention. We found overall that it helps to put the object you want to draw attention to in an empty space. That means no other objects close to it. If it sort of stands by itself, it pops out more of the environment and it stands out more. Another way to have the object be interesting in itself. If there is a whole cabinet, for example, and one drawer is slightly open, the audience will get curious to see what's inside. If there's a phone with a sticky note with a number, people get curious what happens when they dial the number. If there is a telescope pointing outside, people want to know what they see if they look through the telescope. If the curtains suddenly move from closed to open, people will look outside, and so on. Another way is line of sight. If the area and objects in it point in a certain direction, the focus will go to that point. For example, a hallway. The shape of a hallway directs your focus automatically at what is at the end of the hallway. If in a room there are a lot of teddy bears that all look at a certain point, the focus will be directed to that point. The last way I'll be addressing is sound. If you suddenly hear a sound behind you, you turn around to see where it came from, thus directing the audience focus. The second research question that we had was, how do you convey the progression of a story? To convey progression, you need to have a way to let time tick. Whether you just let time be and use animation to move objects around, or you come up with some kind of mechanic to let time flow forward, like we did in our experiment. You could build the same room in multiple points in time and let the audience walk through them. You could build a light switch that changes the objects to how they are later in time, every time you flip it. And there are multiple other creative ways to do this. The point is, if there is no progression in time, there is no progression in the story. The last research question that we had is, if symbolism is an effective way to tell the story. Our answer is yes, as long as the symbols are clear and don't have many ways to interpret them. Otherwise, they will mainly cause confusion instead of contributing to telling the story. A good way to check this is ask yourself, if I see this object, what could it tell me? If you can't come up with any other things than the one you mean to tell, it's a good symbol to use.